A groom saying, "Do you think it will be possible to have a helicopter showering us with flower petals at the end of the wedding ceremony?"
Stella and Moscha. Founded in 1993,
What about the trends?
I hate trends.
their company has become a beacon for couples seeking bespoke weddings in Greece and beyond.
But I'm there to problem solve. That's what I do. Answering questions and solving issues. That there's always something coming up at almost any event.
With a passion for creativity and a commitment to excellence, they craft unforgettable experiences that reflect each couple's unique love story.
They just know that the moment that their guests hear the sound of a Greek island, let's say, or Greece in general, they will make the effort.
Every single question you have about the wedding industry will be answered here. I'm Antonis Papadakis, and this is the thewedpodcast. Welcome. If you do like us, share some love and press the subscribe button. Let's start. Welcome, Stella. Very happy to have you here at the thewedpodcast.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's wonderful to be here.
How did Stella and Moscha come to life?
The company was launched by our late mother, who my family is in the tourism business, is in the hotel business since the 1950s. So one thing led to another. A lot of hotel guests were asking for my mom to help them to elope in Santorini. So this grew at some point, like it inevitably grew, and she decided that she needed to launch a separate company. So Weddings in Santorini came to life officially around 1993.
Long time ago.
Long time ago. We took over with my sister approximately 2006, 2007, and we rebranded to Stella and Moscha, because at that point there were far too many Weddings in Santorini companies, which became apparent that we had to differentiate.
What's the thing that inspired you in the wedding industry?
Well, when this was launched, I was still a student in London, so I was coming back during the summer to see my family, and I could see, like, I had no idea what was going on, and then I joined my mother and to help her on site, and I realized that there are so many couples that really wanted to go outside the norm. They wanted to avoid the whole, the stress of having a wedding back home, and wanted to celebrate in an exotic location, as a lot of people refer it. It's not that Greece is exotic, but at least for some people, it sounds like it's an exotic location. And I saw how, people, they were having so much fun and they were really enjoying themselves. And it was just very different to going to a wedding, in Athens, and, your typical Greek wedding at the church, and then, in some restaurant to celebrate. So I could immediately spot the differences. And I thought that this was very inspiring. And I thought that this was just, a wonderful new chapter in the wedding industry, in the tourism industry, which I thought, okay, this is something I really want to do. Like I immediately sort of fell in love with it, because my first career path when out of university was conferences. Mm-hmm. And I went from corporate world to entertainment.
So after 30 years, almost 30 years now, what's your feelings for the industry it's happening now?
It's changed a lot. When we started, when my mom started and when we took over, it was very much a packaged deal, which is still the case, and there's still a huge market out there where couples felt very comfortable in purchasing a package where all of the services were already, outlined, booked, and decided for them. And because they were getting married abroad, obviously the internet was not as widely available and accessible as it is today. So they felt safe and secure to book a preset wedding package, usually through a major tour operator, and in a lot of the cases, our company served as the representative of that tour operator in Greece to, to oversee the wedding and oversee the production and, do all of the necessary things.
Coordinating.
It wasn't just coordination, it was planning as well, but it was like a it was a collaboration between ourselves and the tour operator, yes.
What's your involvement with GDPA?
Okay,
the last years?
So the GDPA was founded in 2020. I got a call by Elena Javiera from Rock, Paper, Scissors and Vaso Vandali from My Best Wishes events, who I can now call very dear friends, as well as the rest of the people at GDPA. It was that sort of April, May of 2020, we were all locked at home and, in quarantine and, whatever else we were doing. And they said, listen, we are sort of getting together a number of wedding planners and other professionals in the field. We think that you should be in this because, as they said, you are one of the pioneers in the destination wedding industry. So we, arranged a call. I met planners that I've known for years but never personally met. And this whole thing started. It was 20 of us in the beginning. From the very first moment, I was involved in the board of directors with Thomas Politis from For Your Events, Anna Sorbati from the Event Co., Vaso Vandali, Elena Javiera from Rock, Paper, Scissors, and myself. And now we have Panagiotis Koloukakos from the 12 Events and Peggy Simidji from I Wish Chic Events. So there's 7 of us now because there's a lot to do. The board of directors has quite a lot in our, that we're dealing with. And it's very exciting, it's very inspiring, it's very productive. And, sometimes we end up speaking with the 7 of us more than we speak with our teams in order to make things happen.
And something very nice it's happening now with GDPA. Yes,
I've always, right from the start, I was in charge of the social media. So... And that's because nobody else wanted to do it. They were like, oh, no, this is too much, too scary. So I volunteered and I took over that part. We had a company that came on board to help us, obviously, because it's a lot of work. And now we have another company that's working with us, which we feel is, amazing and really helps us with our strategy. And because at the end of the day, what we do is we promote Greece as a premier wedding destination, and this is our target. This is what our main focus, and there is a lot to be done. And even though COVID is way back, is way behind us, and we can say that threat is no longer an issue for the industry faces quite a lot of different issues. And I believe the main thing is for us to establish that Greece is a premier wedding destination, and we want to make sure that we establish ourselves in a very competitive global market.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for all these informations, because when I was started, I was feeling that I found Stella and Moscha there. You was there from very early beginning of the wedding industry in Greece. So we ended up with the industry. Let's go to the couples. Mm-hmm. What's the first steps when you receive an email from a couple?
The first steps, it's pretty much a standard process, I believe, for most people. We need to understand our couple. We need to understand where they come from. What is it that they want? What inspires them, and what is it that they want to achieve on their wedding day? Is it the fun? Is it the decorations and the huge production because, that's what, they love? Is it a 3-day weekend in the Greek islands? So we really need to sit down with a couple and understand them, understand why they chose to have a destination wedding, why they chose Greece. And for me, it's very important to understand why they chose not to have a wedding back home. because that usually answers a lot of the questions, and it's a great starting point. And usually when I ask that question, they always laugh. And they look at each other and they're like, you go, no, you go. And it's always very funny because you see that you can immediately tell that there's a lot of different reasons for that.
Can you share a story about an answer?
Yes. A lot of the couples that we have are expats. And when I say expats, I mean it's usually a couple who met, let's say, in Dubai. They live in Dubai, they work in Dubai. The bride is British, the groom is Australian. And there's always a debate. So where do we get married? Is it Dubai because that's where we live? Or do we go to England or do we go to Australia because, there's 50-50. So they're like, no, we will pick a location, a third country, which we have absolutely no personal or family ties. Greece is accessible from all of these countries. Obviously, Australians have to make a much bigger journey. But it's usually, Greece works for everyone because it's fun, it's the weather, it's the history, it's the culture. And they just know that the moment that their guests hear the sound of a Greek island, let's say, or Greece in general, they will make the effort. And that's almost has been a common answer for a lot of people.
Can you share a moment with a special request of a couple? You have a lot.
You know what? No, I forget them. After a while, I do forget them. And then when somebody asks me a question after like a couple of hours, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. I think that the craziest one of all times was a groom saying, do you think it will be possible to have a helicopter showering us with flower petals at the end of the wedding ceremony?
Wow.
That was a few years ago in Santorini, which was like, I was like, that would be a no. That would be no. It's not going to be possible. But the thing is that he really needed to hear why that was not possible, apart from the safety, and which is the number one. I was like, everything is just going to be blown away.
To another wedding venue.
To another island.
To another island, yeah. What's the most important decision you have to make when choosing a wedding venue?
Accessibility. The first thing is accessibility. The second thing is...
You're not doing weddings only in Santorini?
We do weddings in other parts of Greece. Okay, our main sort of focus is Santorini. But we do approximately like 30% of our work is outside of Santorini. But accessibility is very important. The size of the weddings to make sure that we fit, and what we're planning to do is, what the couple has envisioned is actually doable in a specific venue. And of course, the view and the surroundings, very important.
You have one favorite venue you can share with us, or?
The Acropolis of Athens.
Acropolis.
Anything that has a view of the Acropolis of Athens is my favorite. But I have to tell you, because I am a local of Santorini. I am from Santorini. I don't just live and work there. I come from my family, still lives there, and that's that's our base. I am a very proud Santorinian. I love my island. I love the uniqueness of this island, which is very difficult to match with other places in the world. Santorini is and will always be very special because of the caldera, because of the volcanic cliffs, because of the aura, of the energy you have, because we are surrounded by 3 active volcanoes, and that is very difficult to match. I remember growing up, because I literally grew up inside hotels, and I've always been working during my summers. I've always been working as a kid, and I will never forget the tourists the travelers of Santorini that would arrive in Firatan, which is the capital of Santorini, which is the cliff edge. And when you have people who were staying in other places of Santorini, and the first time they came to Fira to take a stroll and watch the sunset, the moment they arrived, I remember listening to this. People were just so fascinated by the view. It was so difficult for them to put into words. People will just sit there for hours gazing at the view. It's not about the sunset. It's not about, if Santorini has the best sunset. It's about the location, everything around.
I did the same.
And I grew up listening to this. And when I was a very young kid, I was like, why are they? Because for me, it was my home. I mean, I grew up with this view, like that was my home. And, during the summers when I was involved with a family business, I could hear these people doing this, every day. And that's, at a very young age, I realized I live in a very, very unique island because people are, every day, I would hear this tens of times by different people from America, from Europe, from Australia, from Africa. They were coming from all over the world, and they would be so amazed by the view. So Greece is a very beautiful country. I'm very much about promoting all destinations of Greece, but Santorini has something special.
In case you haven't done it already, please hit the subscribe button of our channel so that we keep growing. The more you help us grow, the more interesting professionals we will be able to host. So subscribe today. So back to the planning. Is there hidden costs that we can discuss about them and can help the couple to be in the better budget?
One of the very first things that I share with my couples is that we as planners are here to not just design and plan a wedding, but to manage expectations. And that is the very first thing I share with them. We are managing their expectations because a lot of the times they come to us and they share all of these photos from Pinterest and Instagram. Some of them are from our work, others from other wedding planners, others are just style shoots. And I'm like, this is all great. This is all beautiful. And, I can understand where this is going, and I can understand, what it is that you like and you don't like. But it's very important that we establish some facts first, because all of these photos may be wonderful, but it's also a question of understanding your budget. Because it's very important to understand, like, when you're showing me these photos and you're like, it doesn't have to be these flowers, but if it's not these flowers, it's not going to be the same.
It's not going to be the same, yes.
So if we start changing things, then it's not going to be the same photo. When you're showing a wedding planner a photo, he will immediately say, that's 10, 20, 30, 40. Immediately we know approximately where this is going. So it's important that we start managing their expectations so there are no hidden costs. So they understand that if we go with that direction, this is approximately how much this is going to cost us. And in order to achieve that particular look, what that entails. When you're very honest with the couple right from the start, then you have absolutely no issues halfway through the planning where you have to sort of be the bad guy and telling them, do you know what, there's this cost that we didn't really know, but, we have to pay for it because otherwise it's not going to happen.
So it's a process you follow, like first the flowers, then the whatever?
No, flowers for me comes way later. We have to establish the very important facts first. And the first thing is the venue. We need to establish how we're going to get there, how we're going to transport the guests. Very important. A lot of the time, couples don't understand that we have to take that factor into consideration, how their guests are going to get there, and what is the cost of transportation. And once we establish that, we need to also establish what happens in case of bad weather. If the wedding, let's say, takes place very early on in the summer season or sort of in the fall, we always need to establish that we're protected. There's a plan B. And once we establish those facts and we establish food and beverage, which is a very large expense for any wedding or any event, then we start the fun part, as I call it, choosing a photographer, seeing about the flowers and the colors and all of these things.
Videographer,
yes. Very important. Okay. Videographer.
You have in mind, explain to them that there is a specific time that is very nice for photos and videos and for the ceremony time, I mean.
one of the very first tasks that we do is to create a wedding itinerary, a timeline for the day, because that helps couples understand what it is that we need. Like, do we need a photographer for how many hours? Because if they tell me that, if the venue is only until 12 o'clock midnight, which is pretty much the case for Santorini at least, then we know we have a very specific time frame in order to make everything happen. So we start with a timeline right from the beginning, so couples understand how much time we need to allocate for dinner, for cocktail hour, for the ceremony, for family photos, all dancing, all of that. So they need to see that breakdown in order to understand what we need and how long we need each supplier for. Let's say, for example, we have live entertainment. How long for? When do they need to start singing? Let's say. So it's very important for them to understand in order to establish how much time we need for photography or videography, and how important photography and videography is for them. We have a lot of couples that say to us, you know what? I don't want to be gone for an hour. Being photographed during the cocktail hour and guests waiting around for me in order to start dinner. That's not something I want to do, which obviously all of the different proposals that have been created the last few years by photographers and videographers, where we can do like an engagement shooting the day before or the first look before the actual ceremony. All of these things help because we can have all of the portraits done at a time where the couple is not really thinking about their guests and that everyone is waiting around. So they can enjoy themselves, so they can also enjoy the cocktail hour and being with their guests and their family.
And they accept it.
Yes. It's a 50-50. We have couples that don't. We have brides who, and grooms, not just the brides, who photography and videography for them is very important. And they're like, we don't mind. We're going to go away for an hour and a half. There's going to be beautiful cocktail hour. We'll have entertainment arranged for our guests because we want to be photographed at that specific moment. And you know very well that the lighting conditions, you have that 1 hour where you can really have the best light conditions to photograph the couple.
I mean, I have been to weddings that the plan was not very good for us for the lighting, so we have like a very hard light during the ceremony. Yeah. And after the ceremony, we didn't have time. Like 10 minutes for portraits is nothing.
I know.
That's why I'm asking you if you have a plan to explain to them that, look, if you want photos, you have to do this.
We do, and this is why we get the photographer and videographer involved at that point in the process, where we ask them to discuss this before we finalize the itinerary. Because I don't want the photographer and the couple coming back to me 8 months later saying to me, do you know what, we need to change it. And at that point, it may not be possible to change for whatever reason the timeline of the event. So I do this at a very early stage. As soon as the photographer is booked and before we finalize the timings with people, we have the timeline ready. I ask the couple and the photographer and the videographer to discuss it to ensure that they are both happy with the timings and what has been allocated for the portrait session before, after, first look, day before, to ensure that there are no misunderstandings on that. Because for a lot of couples, that is a very important aspect. Like I've come to Greece for this. I want to go around 10 different chapels and be photographed. This is what I'm here for. So I have to make it happen.
What about the trends?
I hate trends.
All of us. I mean,
but, I shouldn't be saying it, but I don't like it.
But you see them happening.
Obviously, as creatives, we need to be following trends because we need to update our work, and because no wedding is the same and shouldn't be the same, because every couple is different and every person, their personalities are different. So we need to respect, the couple's wishes. A lot of the time they come to us with, specific trends in mind. Some are doable, others are not doable, or others match their venue or location, others don't match. At the end of the day, it is what the couple wants. I mean, this is their wedding. But we always aim to advise them on what is I could say the right thing to do, or the best way to move forward with the styling of the wedding, because sometimes trends can lead to things that are totally unnecessary, and at the end of the day they don't make sense. So for example, I'm going to use an example which is the whole thing with the trend with the pampas grass. It was such a huge nightmare for the caterers, because the moment you place pampas
grass, and it was for a lot of years.
And it was for a little, and it still is. It hasn't totally gone away. We still have couples who request it because they like that whole boho style. They like it, and it looks beautiful in photos. When you see it all set up, but pampas grass goes everywhere. It's the food. There's also a health and safety issue, because the moment you have pampas grass on the table and you set up, all of the art de la table items, and you have little pampas things,
everywhere,
and that is not, obviously ideal. All F&B managers go wild when they see that. So yes, trends. But we need to try and work around them to make sure that we always take into consideration health and safety as well, because that is also a very important aspect in what we do. We have chandeliers, we have all of these marquees and all of these constructions that we sometimes produce. We need to take into consideration about the safety of our guests and of our clients, because we have weddings that take place outdoors and the weather can be unpredictable. So safety first for me. We need to make sure that we establish the fact that people will be safe, and whatever it is we build on the day of the wedding, it's going to stay there for the entire duration of the wedding.
What are you doing on the wedding day?
What we do on the wedding day? Okay.
Not your team, you.
What I do on the wedding day. Okay. So usually I am the one who shows up in the morning when light and sound are, which is usually the first thing that gets installed in a wedding. So I usually go when the big boys, as I say, are on site to start setting up. Because I am very much about safety. I want to make sure that what we do is going to stay. And I have changed setups.
Totally.
Not totally. We've altered setups at times, because, like I said, when you are on an island, it can be windy. And I have to say that this summer, most of the windy days were on events we had in Athens and not on the islands, which was a huge surprise for us. And we had to be very careful in terms of how we set up. We even had to change the flowers, the centerpieces, because flowers just flying around because of the wind.
So it was easier at the islands without the...
This year, yes, at least for me. We had less windy conditions on the islands this year, like in Santorini and in Paros, where we've had a couple of weddings, than compared to Athens.
Okay. Yeah. So after setting the light and the audio?
After setting the light and the audio is when we start going through checklists, suppliers coming in. So problem solving, that's what I do all day. Problem solving. Because at that point, my team comes in where they are overseeing the project. So they're usually, taking over, the entire process. But I'm there to problem solve. That's what I do. Answering questions and solving issues. That there's always something coming up at almost any event.
What's the most rewarding wedding moment you have in your career?
Father of the bride speech. When he is talking about, obviously, giving away his daughter. And even in most cases, we probably have never met this person until the actual day of the wedding, or a couple of days before at the ceremony rehearsal. And that he takes the time to thank us personally and literally looking around to see where we are at the venue, and thank us for the work that has been, going on behind the scenes for all of these months. And I would probably say 100% of the cases when they thank us, they say, we would never have imagined how much work goes on behind the scenes to arrange a 40 or 50 guest destination wedding, which we thought was just going to be, a piece of cake. And that is a rewarding moment for us.
Your feelings?
I cry. I try to hide it, but I do. Maybe it's an age thing, I don't know. I didn't used to cry a few years ago, but now I do cry a lot of times. I get emotional because it is that moment where you feel like our work is really appreciated by the people who, at the end of the day, a lot of the times it's the father of the bride who pays the bill. So it's very important that he who pays the bill is happy with everything.
In every episode, we have the last guest question. Mm-hmm. So I will ask you a question that the last guest give to us. If you can change one thing in the wedding industry, what could it be?
The lack of respect that wedding planners have from other people. And I don't mean photographers, videographers, or actual wedding venues, because they do appreciate what we do. But there's a lot of people in the industry who are involved in the industry, like hotels, for example, or other types of suppliers who don't appreciate our role. Maybe it's a misconception in Greece. I don't know if it's the same in other countries, to be honest with you. And that is a good thing to ask some of the fellow planners that I know based in other countries. But they treat us as decorators. They treat us, as I call it, sometimes as the ones who are just making the bows on the wedding favors. Mm-hmm. That's not what we do. That is probably 30% of what we do. The rest of it is mostly logistics, being a psychologist for the couple, being their eyes and ears most of the time, being their eyes and ears, being the one that provides emotional support to them, and even sometimes offering advice on how to deal with their families, being the ones who have to make sure that in order to make a wedding happen and a specific idea that the couple has, that both the venue, the photographers, the producers, the florist, the sound and light, everybody understands and appreciates, because they all have to work together to make this happen. And if one of them doesn't appreciate it and doesn't understand it, it will be totally wrong and it will go wrong, and it's a domino effect. So it's very important that every day we have to literally convince people for things. We have to convince them that when you do that, it will be so good. It will provide us with such good images. It will provide us with such good, videos, and for us to showcase what we're capable of producing in Greece, and it will be beneficial for everyone. But I can see that a lot of people have lack of respect for what we do, for our profession. And that is something that possibly we have to, maybe as planners, we have to work on this and see how we can educate people.
Have you seen things change in this? So it's improvement. Have you seen improvement in this respect?
For sure.
During the years?
I have to use the example of Santorini again. The very first example is the Church of Santorini, the Greek Orthodox Church of Santorini, who have told me that they want to have a wedding with a wedding planner because it makes their life much easier. Because when they're dealing with couples who live abroad, and the whole process of documentation and legalities is quite a serious one and requires time, effort, and attention. Mm-hmm. And when there is a planner, they know the work is going to be done, and they know that all of the documents will arrive on time, and and they're going to be the correct ones. And they know that on the day of the wedding, they don't have to worry a lot, because the planner is making sure that everything happens
in the proper way,
and the church will be respected. And people will not just go inside the church and be totally disrespectful. So for sure, I have seen that the priests in Santorini definitely appreciate us, for sure. Same goes for the town hall of Santorini. They definitely appreciate us. And I have seen a lot of venues in Santorini where they when they get direct bookings and a planner is not involved from the very first moment of the wedding planning process. So the couple books them directly and they say, yes, that's great, like to have you. But on their terms and conditions, they require that a wedding planner is hired and involved in order for them to get married at this particular venue. So yes, you can book this venue, but you do need a planner, because the venue cannot answer questions as to what time does the florist need to come in to set up the flowers. It's not their job to say, because they don't know how long the florist needs, or what will be the weather conditions on that particular day of the event, or if you're having very sensitive flowers and they literally need to be set up at the last moment, or it's something that can be done first thing in the morning. So these are not for the venue to answer. So we are very proud that after all of these years, at least in that part of Greece, we've educated, several wedding suppliers to appreciate our work and to protect our work, for sure.
We hope you enjoyed this interview as much as we did. Subscribe and stay tuned for more.